Cast of our July journal. By now, most everyone watching knows that the subject matter deals with satanic worship and the taking of human life. However, if you are tuning in for the first time ever, we warn you now that the material that you are about to watch contains some very graphic scenes and is of a frightening subject matter. Our reason for rebroadcast is because so many people were not home broadcast night on the 4th of July holiday, and they requested that it be replayed. On the night of April 30th, the cattle belonging to the Rose Allen family near Ponchatoula are restless. In a matter of days, 8 of them will fall victim to a cult of Satan worshipers. And what is left behind is perhaps the most visible sign yet of what is becoming an expanding phenomena, especially in South Louisiana and nearby Mississippi.
They cut circles around like this and took the heart out. Now you can see how they spread the bone, and they got in there, got the heart out. And then they took the ears and cut the same circle.
The animals have been taken as sacrifice on April 30th, the eve of May, sometimes known as Walpurgis Night in medieval literature. That's not all Rose Allen and Betty Hebert found.
I was looking for other cows and clues, and that's when I found this house over here. And then I opened the door, went in, and they had all these paintings and drawings in there.
The house was all but hidden in the woods and thick underbrush on the east side of the pasture.
Now this is definitely an arrow.
This is the face of the cow.
Yeah.
And what would this one be?
Betty, what is this right here?
I really don't know. You see, this was the second time I came back, that this was there. And then the third time is when they put this up top.
What do you make of all this? What does this say to you?
Well, it frightens me. It truly
What
does.
Betty Hebert and her mother stumbled on was a coven used by Satan worshipers. On one wall was the head of the beast, Satan. On another, the snake, representing Satan in the Garden of Eden.
Then when I came back,
Betty Hebert had broken up a ritual, and it almost cost them their lives as they tried to leave their property that night.
And this car tried to run us off the road. It was not a car, a truck, a black truck, and it looked like it had 2 people in it. And we were really fortunate they didn't, because they kept on running. Then they turn around and do like, they'd hit the brakes and slide and turn around and then head back into us. And this went on for about 3 miles.
The entire situation has left both women anxious and scared. But Betty Hebert says if there is another time, she will be prepared to shoot.
All I can say is if they come by me, I'm prepared, and I do mean it. Well, I'm concerned, because maybe I'm the next person. They do, you know, maybe they're after people too, and I'm frightened. And I think that if I have to use this gun to get rid of some of them, I will.
The Allen Hebert encounter is not the only one. At the end of a very secluded blacktop road about 4 miles off of Highway 190, there is ample sign of what took place here. A pentagram on the blacktop, an inverted cross driven into the road and then burned. Nearby, the remains of a cow whose entrails and blood had been removed. 16-year-old Michael Bertone of Hammond was with a friend when they stumbled on to this ritual.
So then we went back there and we seen them. They had a little 5-point star with the candles on it, and we was riding back there. And so then they seen us, and then they started chasing us, so we just took off and left. We didn't turn back.
In a rural cemetery not far away, the familiar pentagram with the upside-down crucifix has been left on the most prominent oak tree there, a sign that a ceremony has taken place here as well. There are also remains of a small animal, most likely used in that ritual.
The number one problem we have is we can't find out who they are. They're very secretive. They're very...
Sheriff Pat Canulet of St. Tammany Parish has been aware of the satanic cult problem for some time and has even sent several of his deputies to a special school to learn more. One of those men is Captain Ferdy Drennan.
On the major part, it's being controlled, manipulated, and organized by very influential professional people.
In the course of the Journal's investigation, we have heard the names of college professors, doctors, bankers, lawyers, and other professionals. Their right to privacy is protected by the First Amendment. Satanic activity has become widespread throughout Louisiana. The Lafayette area seems to have as much activity as New Orleans and the North Shore. Father Joe Brennan has been assigned by the Catholic Church to deal with the problem. Father Brennan says he is particularly disturbed that these professional people at the top are recruiting school kids.
When these children go through this horrendous experience of cult initiation, where they have to drink animal blood, where they have to drink their own urine and eat their own defecation, this is such a traumatic experience on them, then they resort to drugs. It's not the other way around.
Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Deputy George Armbuster says it is that horrendous initiation process mentioned by Father Brennan that poses a definite problem for law enforcement officers trying to infiltrate.
They're going to ask you to do certain things, that if you really want to come in, we want you to commit a crime. So right off the bat, he's either going to have to pull out or his cover's going to be blown anyway.
Many of the experts are wondering if the recent spate of satanic movies, such as Angel Heart, may not be drawing cult followers to Louisiana.
There's death everywhere these days, Johnny. But what gives human life its worth anyway?
Angel Heart and a movie called The Believers both depict Louisiana as a place where this sort of thing is tolerated and commonplace.
I encourage parents to pay attention to what the kids watch, because our society is turning so violent right now that our children are starting to believe that violence is a way of life and it's acceptable.
It's the devil with nude couple.
Satan worship and the interest in it seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. Michael Talbot works in one of those mystical shops in the New Orleans French Quarter and sees proof of it every day.
We get people coming in here, 4 or 5 a day looking for books on Satanism. And we had one lady come in here about a week and a half ago and spent $300 and cleared us out of all the books we had on the subject.
Satan worship is not to be confused with other cult religions such as Caribbean voodoo, Santeria worship of the saints, and Cajun traiteurs. In Lafayette, Grigri lady Lily Joseph says that Satan worshipers make her nervous.
Just some of them are dressed all in black, and it's like they're very impatient, and you can tell it doesn't smile very much.
The feeling was much the same in an occult shop on Royal Street in the French Quarter, where a young woman, known only as Melissa, remembers having conversations with Satanists.
They're very threatening people, you can just see it in their eyes. They're not happy, and you just tend to stay away from them, is what I do.
Father Joe Brennan of Lafayette was sent to Canada and Europe to learn from experts how to discern when a person is actually possessed by Satan. Listen now as he tells of a counseling session with a prisoner.
I mentioned the name Jesus Christ, and he leaped over the desk, spitting and grunting. It was a terrifying thing to see what can happen to a person.
He came at you?
Yes, he did.
What prevented him from attacking you?
Well, he jumped over the desk, and I pushed him back, and law enforcement was here to put him down.
I talked to our officer who happened to be there and said the person had, was superhuman strength, superhuman strength.
The strength of a person is not the only thing that changes when people come under the spell of a satanic cult. What you are listening to was recorded at the bedside of a woman from rural Tangipahoa Parish. Its authenticity has been vouched for by professionals treating her.
The one thing I will never comprehend is not so much the existence of the evil one, not so much human weakness, because that's understandable, but how people can worship the evil one.
The Journal has been able to interview a North Shore woman who has been a Satan worshiper for nearly 15 years. Her identity was provided by two physicians, one of them a psychiatrist. Both doctors vouched for her truthfulness.
So my friends saw that I was definitely curious about it, and that's how I met older people who were into it. And again, I'm saying professional people. And
Give me the professions if you can.
a psychologist, there were two, several professors, they had one doctor, there was a psychiatrist in the group also, and there was a banker and several teachers. And at first, I felt extremely out of place because I was one of the younger ones. And I was accepted. I was invited. I experienced various things I wouldn't have been exposed to. And in the process, my family had no awareness of what I was doing.
The woman talked for more than an hour, describing how various animals are used in the rituals, especially cattle, like the ones belonging to Rose Allen and Betty Hebert.
It was usually blood through the carotid arteries. An incision would be made, and the heart would be taken out very meticulously, and it would be used in process. The blood would be saved, and they would take a chalice. Usually it was from a minister who had left the church or someone.
She told how members of the coven, always there are 13, and if someone is unable to attend, the number is always kept uneven. She told how they would drink the blood of the animal and then eat its heart.
We would take the chalice, we put the blood into it, and everyone would drink to seal the pact.
Contrary to what most people believe about satanic rock music, her particular coven preferred...
We listened to classical pieces. It was all like piped in during the ceremonies. It's not something that you would hear heavy metal music or acid rock at that time. This was a very uniformed. We were listening to Chopin, Mozart, Bach.
Where would you meet?
Various members' homes and also along the river.
One of the highest rituals in the coven is the Black Mass.
A mirrored image of the Catholic Mass.
Latin Mass.
Right.
Dominus vobiscum. Dominus vobiscum.
Right. And then they would invoke Satan's name into it. You would have the offertory. You would be offering to Satan. Then you would get into the wines, which they would use actual blood and flesh.
The Black Mass, the authentic Black Mass, is patterned after the pre-Vatican II Mass, and instead of prayers, there are satanic incantations and the worst kind of language and abuse.
Black masses and animal sacrifices are one thing, but what about human sacrifice?
Where 5 years ago we weren't concerned about a satanic killing on a homicide or a body that we found, now we do have to look into it.
Up to and possibly including murder.
What do you know of human sacrifice?
No comment.
You know it exists.
I do.
Listen carefully now as the woman who spent 15 years in a North Shore satanic coven tells firsthand of human sacrifice. She allowed it to slip out, and I repeat what she has already said to me as I try to get her to tell all she knows. Two physicians say she is telling the truth, and what she told me has been verified by a second source.
You have seen a human sacrifice.
I have.
Tell me about that.
I prefer not to.
Was the person poisoned?
Yes.
His name or her name was drawn out of the hat
Yes.
during one of the ceremonies.
Yes.
Did they know that they were the ones chosen for this human sacrifice?
Yes.
They acquiesced?
Yes.
And was it a he or a she?
It was a he.
He volunteered to drink the poison?
Yes. It was in an alabaster cup. And he drank it.
Died immediately?
Within a matter of seconds, yes.
Then what happened?
His heart was taken from his chest. It was cut up and served to the new beginners.
They had to eat?
A section of the heart.
Were you one of those?
No.
But you watched this being done?
I saw it being done.
Where were you at the time?
I can't tell you that.
Here in Louisiana?
Yes.
Outside or inside?
Inside.
What was done with the remains of the body after this?
I don't know.
Was there ever a police investigation?
Not to my knowledge.
The person just disappeared?
Right.
Was the person well known?
No.
How old was he?
I would say he was 40.
40 years old. If they had selected you, would you have...
I wouldn't have been able to fight it off because during the ceremony, for some reason, you get caught up into it. It's like a state of hypnosis. It really is.
So you would have acquiesced, let them kill you?
Definitely. A lot of times, the victim selected is poisoned very quickly. They don't suffer. Only in an act of complete anger would they kill and cause pain.
How many other human sacrifices have you ever seen?
2.
2. Was the other one prior to this or after this?
It was afterwards, and that's when I fled.
Was it a woman or a man?
This time it was a woman.
And again, what happened? Did they pull names?
She was selected beforehand. I wasn't really aware of who she was or where she came from. She was dressed in a sheer gown, and she was laid on a granite stone. She drank from the alabaster chalice. She died. Her heart was not taken out. She was just seized. And they chanted around her and wished to seal the pact with the devil. They didn't touch her because she was a virgin.
How old was she?
She was 18.
And you don't know where she came from?
No.
Or what they did with the body?
No. After that, I fled.
Did she talk before drinking the poison? I mean, did she say anything? Or?
Because she was like in a state of hypnosis, a hypnotic state. She walked around as like a zombie, one not truly aware of one's surroundings. But she knew the steps to walk up and to take the chalice with both hands and drink.
How many people were there at the time?
13.
And she was the odd man out?
Right.
Or the odd woman out in this case?
Odd person.
How long did the ceremony take place and why? Why?
It was to seal a pact with someone in the coven that wanted more power. To go up, the price to pay was higher.
A human sacrifice?
Right.
What was it that the person wanted?
I don't know. A lot of times it's not discussed with the members.
In the course of the interview, she nearly broke down as she recounted how she was instructed to force a certain man.
The person committed suicide.
What this former cult member is saying was backed up by Father Emile LaFrance, the exorcist for the New Orleans Catholic Archdiocese.
There has been human sacrifice, I know that.
Father LaFrance sees people connected in one way or the other with satanic cults almost on a daily basis.
There was an individual who a few years ago came to see me because he was concerned about what he had observed taking place in his own home. He was living with a young lady, and all of a sudden, things began to happen in the house. Things began to move. There was a sort of a sense of an evil presence. And in discussing this with me, he mentioned that this young lady had been involved in a coven, and her family was involved with a coven. And as a young girl, she visited the North Lake area and actually witnessed a ritual slaying.
Let me ask you this. Whatever became of the young man?
Well, this is certainly interesting. Not very long after that, he was found dead. And the two detectives came to see me because they knew I was speaking to him about counseling with him, and they felt that it was a ritual slaying.
Forensic consultant Lucretia McBride has written several police instruction manuals on satanic crime and has held seminars for officers. She says she has seen several cases where women are recruited to bear children.
They're bearing children for sacrifice. It depends on what type of sacrifice ritual you have. You have satanic rituals that involve only male children, some that involve female children on certain days. Normally, they're laid out in a very precise manner. Everything has a meaning. Every little thing has a meaning. They're laid out. They are opened with a sacrificial knife, and the organs are eaten. Now, that sounds absolutely atrocious, and it does sound
While they're
gross.
alive?
It depends. It depends. It depends on who the high priest or priestess is and the sacrifice that they're becoming involved in. The whole idea is the younger you are, the more innocent you are. The more innocent you are, the more powerful that individual has in his organs. So you see, what I'm trying to explain to you, Bill,
and
is
women
do
are being
this
recruited to have children
for sacrifice. Now that sounds bizarre, but it's been happening.
In 1978, an unusual B-grade documentary designed to be shown in drive-in theaters and cheap movie houses was produced by Rosalind Scott and Alan Black. They were able to talk a California satanic cult into allowing them to film a cannibalistic ritual.
We are there, and we are beautiful.
The film did not hold anything back. It showed the members eating actual body parts and then having a sexual orgy. The movie was withdrawn from theater play, and even now, it is difficult to find in video shops. It is difficult to believe police estimates of 50,000 murders each year in this country due to satanic sacrifice. But that is the figure quoted in the National Cult Crime Network newsletter. 50,000 people, as many as die on the highways in this country each year. But the question is, how do you get rid of 50,000 bodies?
They've ground up the flesh for later use in rituals. The bones are ground up, the blood is used in different rituals, and totally disposing of the bodies is what happens.
They're just being disposed of. They're being disposed of by cremation. They're being disposed of by being put in garbage bags and thrown in landfills, in dumps.
You know, little children on the milk cartons, you know, you wonder where they go.
You know it exists.
I do.
A lot of people call Satan the beast, the great beast.
The response from people who knew about satanic activity in New Orleans and the surrounding parishes following the original broadcast was unbelievable. There were literally hundreds who had had at least some knowledge or even an encounter. On the other hand, the sheriff of Tangipahoa Parish, Ed Larison, announced several days before the rebroadcast that he had solved the case of ritual cattle slaughter on the Allen Abear Ranch. He said that his investigators had concluded that the cattle were killed by wild dogs and picked over by buzzards. He did not explain why dogs and buzzards would surgically remove the blood, the heart, the ears, and the eyes, and then placed turkey feathers in ritual fashion around the carcasses. Larison also noted that the satanic markings in that small house nearby were, in his opinion, a Halloween prank. Of course, his opinion was contrary to the thinking of the neighboring sheriff in St. Tammany Parish, Pat Canulet. Sheriff Larison has steadfastly refused to be interviewed by this reporter concerning the conclusion of his investigation. Now, from this chair, I said after the story originally aired that we had learned all that you saw in 2 weeks. We mentioned that law enforcement was well aware of satanic activity in our area and that they should be able to learn as much or more than we did. We continue to stand by that statement because we've had the opportunity to investigate even further, and what we came up with in another 2 short weeks was even more startling.
You could become a human sacrifice.
Explain that.
Somebody could just drive by, pick you up, throw you in the back of a van, bring you somewhere and kill you. That would be a human sacrifice, wouldn't it?
It happens like that?
Yeah.
This is the baby, and this is a splatter the blood he would make on the wall.
This is what my ex-husband drew, and when I saw it, I screamed. It was so horrible.
She was screaming, she was knocking her head on the floor, she was miserable. She looked like she was ready to explode.
All of that and more on our next journal coming up on the first Sunday in August. Until then, from all of us who work on Journal, good night. Stories are surfacing every day about this sort of thing in all parts of this nation. Now, since our July report and its rebroadcast, hundreds of letters and telephone calls have confirmed evidence of local satanic activity. Some of it by hardcore professionals, some of it by teenage dabblers intrigued by lunatic behavior that dances on the fringe of sanity. These calls and letters led us to places such as the old pumping station behind Algiers, where satanic slogans and drug paraphernalia are everywhere. On the outskirts of Hammond, the Fred Wolf family brought us to a secluded house that was ritually marked. The evidence suggests that the activity here was recent.
And then when we walked out to leave, we just turned back around and saw this on the wall. To me, it looks like blood.
In Belle Chase, directly across from the public high school, lies an abandoned house. Inside, satanic markings suggest that kids, exploring the dangerous and shadowy world of Satanism, have found a convenient hiding place. And in Gretna, neighbors to a secluded wooded lot say that police ask them not to say anything after investigating an animal ritual slaying. Now, this was several months back.
3 or 4 policemen in plain clothes, you know, they came out, and I'd say about 2 weeks, a month later, something like that, they called, and they said they had another incident like that in Orleans Parish.
If we had photographed every site reported to us by the public, we literally could fill up the journal with a montage of satanic ritual sites. Unfortunately, the first program kicked up a storm of controversy in Tangipahoa Parish. Sheriff Ed Larison, while refusing to be interviewed by this journal, set off on a crusade to discredit the claims of Betty Hebert and Rose Allen that their cattle were killed in the course of a satanic ritual on their secluded ranch near Ponchatoula. The sheriff called a news conference at which the journal was excluded. He told the media that chose to attend that wild dogs had killed the cattle.
That the cows were killed from any other reason other than attacked by dogs.
The sheriff's efforts have not changed the minds of the 2 women whose cattle were killed.
The dogs did not kill the cows. How could a dog kill a cow? Cut a hole in the right side, take the heart out. Now I want to see that dog if he's around.
Now, Sheriff Larison's dogged persistence in discrediting the Hebert-Allen incident has baffled many people in his parish. And in all of this, the sheriff even fired off an invitation for this reporter to appear before a grand jury. Meanwhile, a number of incidents have surfaced in Tangipahoa Parish which beg for answers. Incidents such as those that touched the family of Ponchatoula Times newspaper reporter H.L. Ulrich. Ulrich was the first to report on the happenings that took place on the cattle ranch of Betty Hebert and Rose Allen.
I did the initial story. I thought that was going to be the only story, but it seemed like the more...
H.L. Ulrich's wife, Kathy, said that she became concerned for her husband, but at first could not put her finger on it.
I was scared, but, you know, I didn't figure anything would happen. I figured, you know, it was animals, you know, and that they weren't going to fool with anybody else, and I didn't think that they would even try to harm him for writing the stories.
The Ulriches say it almost cost them the life of their 10-month-old baby. It seems that Kathy Ulrich had just dropped her husband at work and had stopped briefly at a store next to her home.
Pouring down rain, the baby's 2 months old. She didn't want to get the baby out in the rain, so she parks by the door, steps inside, and only in there a second, she comes back out, and here's a woman running across the parking lot with our child.
She had his carrier, and I grabbed the carrier, and I turned to set him down, you know, so I could do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but when I grabbed him and turned with him, she jumped in her car.
That wasn't the only thing to happen to the Ulriches.
This is what I found in my car. I stopped at another convenience store. I went in, I bought a Coke. I wasn't in but 5 minutes. And I came back out, and I found this stuck into my seat. And this is frightening. If you'll notice, on the handle, it's a strange face, and it looks to me like Satan. I don't know who did it. Apparently they were following me because it was put in there in just that quick amount of time. And this frightened me. It didn't stop me from writing, but it made me guard my family a lot closer. And they don't stay alone now, and I usually don't go anywhere without my gun.
We both carry our gun with us all the time. And, you know, I mean, I feel like he should be able to write what he sees and what he hears and what he thinks. And, you know, but we're going to protect ourselves.
The Ulriches are not the only couple to carry a gun in Tangipahoa.
Why are you carrying this, Mr. Baum? Tell us.
For my safety, for my family's safety.
Ed and June Baum have carried guns ever since the kidnapping and murder of their daughter, Donna Baum. That was on January 21st from the city of Amite. Donna Baum was an attractive attorney as well as a CPA. The family says Donna Baum was investigating drugs and satanic activity in the parish when she was killed.
Her body was brought here and dumped.
This was the jewelry that she had on her when they found her. Her ruby and diamond watch and tennis bracelet. This was her ring that she bought from a client. This was her LSU graduation ring that I bought for her when she graduated from LSU. She had on a beautiful pearl.
So you're saying that robbery was not a motive here at all?
Robbery was not a motive. But I understand that if a woman is a virgin, they're not mutilated nor their jewelry taken.
By whom?
Satan worshipers.
And you think Satan worship is involved in this killing?
Well, we have been given reports that it was.
Donna Baum disappeared after last being seen leaving the parking lot of the Tangipahoa Parish Courthouse in Amite. That was on midday, June 21st of this year. Eyewitnesses report seeing a black man getting in her car. And this is a composite of that man. But the Baums say they have information that the person in their daughter's car may have been a white man in disguise. The Baums say that even before they knew that their daughter had been kidnapped, the abductors began calling on the telephone. And several hours later, they say the kidnappers shot their daughter while Mrs. Baum listened on the telephone.
One of the informers said that at that point they shot her when they said June Baum, and at that pause they shot her twice, in which Donna was shot twice.
Sheriff Ed Larison of Tangipahoa refuses to be interviewed by the Journal. Now, the Justice Department has interviewed and subpoenaed someone who claims to have knowledge connecting satanic involvement and the murder of Donna Baum. However, only the arrest and conviction of those responsible will prove once and for all whether Satanists were involved with Donna Baum's murder. The Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Department hosted a 3-day seminar last month on how to investigate satanic crimes. Sheriffs from all over the state sent 1 or more deputies to attend and listen to national experts on the problem. St. Tammany Parish sent 2 men. Lafayette Sheriff spokesman George Armbruster says this about rural police officers.
I think some of the officers that are in the school that are from some more rural areas are probably shocked at some of the things that they've been told in the school.
Chief Armbruster says that law enforcement has been slow to recognize violent crime committed in the name of Satanism. Take Charlie Gervais, for instance. Charlie Gervais of New Orleans admitted to police shortly after being captured that he and 2 accomplices had killed a Metairie man just to see if they had the nerve. Charlie Gervais later confided that it was part of his initiation into a satanic cult in the Warehouse District of New Orleans. Today, Charlie Gervais is confined to Angola for life. Listen now as Charlie Gervais talks about death and his reward for killing.
Are you afraid of death?
No. No Satanist is afraid of death.
What do you think lies ahead for you?
Death.
After death, though?
After death? I'll be given 10,000 legions of souls to rule over in hell.
You have been promised this?
Yeah.
And you look forward to this?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with these souls?
Torture them, torment them, and have them fight against God in the final little war.
How are you going to torture and torment them? Tell me, how would you go about doing that?
In the same way as if it was like a physical sense here, it'll be there because I'll be immortal, then I'll be able to do anything. I'm gonna beat and rape their children when they come to hell. I'm gonna just dog them. I'm gonna treat them bad.
And this is going to give you happiness?
Yeah.
As a Satanist?
Mm-hmm.
All Satanists are parceled out 10,000 souls?
Well, difference for different people, depending on what you do and how far you go into the church.
How did you arrive at the 10,000 figure? Is it something you asked for or something that is known or written down?
No, it just goes by like your merits. By the time I die, I'll probably have some more.
Charlie Gervais can recite practically page for page from Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. And he says he has intimate knowledge of satanic cult activity in the New Orleans area. And even after the murder, authorities took Charlie Gervais as a kook. We will hear from Charlie Gervais again in this program. Now, when we return, charges of satanic ritual abuse at child care centers.
This portion of Bill Elder's Journal is brought to you in part by Crunch Taters, another fine product from Frito-Lay, and by the new Del Champ Superstores.
Who said a penny saved is a penny earned? Del Champs?
Some food stores save you money occasionally. Del Champs saves you money every day. Because only Del Champs has everyday minimum pricing. Absolutely lower pricing. 24 hours, every day. Del Champs, where we take saving you money seriously.
Saving money can get to be a habit, so I have a habit of going to Del Champs.
Day in, day out, nobody beats Del Champs prices.
Seriously.
Make amazing Cajun flavor, just right. Them wild Cajun spices got an extra crunchy bite. Don't say I didn't warn you about the crunch tater munch. It's a real taste explosion between the flavor and the crunch. Lay's brand crunch taters, extra crunchy potato chips. There's a real taste explosion between the flavor and the crunch.
There's someone exciting inside you, and her eyes are a different color. Durasoft Color's contact lenses can change your eye color to hers. Make your eye color a Durasoft color.
A number of parents of small children have told the Journal that at least 3 child care centers in the metropolitan area have been under investigation for satanic child molestation at some time during the past 3 years. Last January, a suit was filed against the Metairie Play Care Center on West Esplanade Avenue in Metairie by Harvey and Eileen Dupuis. The Dupuis' little girl was one of 8 kids whose parents say they were abused at the school, but only the Dupuis carried through with a civil suit. Eileen Dupuis says that everything her child told her and the psychologist points to satanic abuse.
She has talked about people with blood on their faces, people wearing black robes. She has talked about being hurt with a stick. Everybody hurt her with a stick.
Sexually?
Sexually. She has said that they were men and ladies. That they had a frog that she used to play with, and they took a frog and they poked the frog's eyes out. They told her if she told anybody, they would poke her eyes out with a stick.
Richard Ducote is the attorney representing Harvey and Eileen Dupuis.
Well, all of the elements of satanic ritualistic abuse seem to be present here. You have a number of perpetrators, you have a number of children, you have the use of butchering animals, you have robes, you have some sort of ceremony. And those are the things you typically see in the satanic sexual abuse cases as well.
We took the allegations made by the Dupuis and their attorney to the people named in the suit. Diana Thames, the director, and Chuck McQuarrie, the administrator.
I'm sure from your standpoint, there is a curiosity. Why 9 families? We are as baffled about some of these allegations that's been made, and frankly, we are baffled by the lawsuits.
We have, again, the open door policy. You can come and go as you please. With 140 children, we always have parents coming in and out of our building at all times.
Diana Thames, you were named by the children as one of the persons wearing a black robe who sexually abused them.
Well, that certainly is not true. I don't even have a black robe. I am named in the lawsuit, but again, that's typical because I am the director and that comes with the job.
The Dupuis and the families of the other kids are particularly angry with the criminal investigation conducted by Sheriff Harry Lee's office. They say that halfway through the investigation, the detective heading up the probe was dismissed. So the detective, the main detective working the case, was fired for reasons other than the case.
Yeah.
But did it not leave the case in disarray?
I don't think so.
The parents feel that it did. In any event, the case was handed over to District Attorney John Mammalidis' office. First Assistant Marion Edwards, soon after, wrote a letter to the State Health and Human Resources Department which said, and I quote, "This office has reviewed the same and have found that there were no basis for any of the allegations made during the investigation." Now, Marion Edwards admits that he wrote that letter at the request of attorney Jacob Amato, Jr. Jacob Amato, Jr., it turns out, represents District Judges Wallace LeBrun and Jacob Carno, who reportedly owned the majority of stock in the Child Care Center. Now, neither the judges nor Amato or anyone in the office of John Mammalidis would agree to an interview on the matter. Whitewash?
I feel it was.
For what reason?
It seems like, Pete, that Jefferson Parish was not concerned with what was happening to the children, but concerned with protecting somebody.
I think that's a possibility. I think given the very close political associations of all the criminal justice individuals involved in Jefferson Parish, that's a possibility.
Let's go on to what we have.
Okay.
Complaints have been made. Your office made an investigation, concluded that there was no evidence there, right?
No. There was evidence of child molestation in 2 cases.
All right.
I mean, there was physical evidence that two of the children.
Why didn't you recommend then that some prosecution take place or
because
arrest
we didn't know, we couldn't say who did it.
Why didn't you?
I read the reports. I'm thinking,
so it happened, but you don't know who did it.
We understand that from a physical examination of two of the children, there is evidence that the children were molested.
At the school?
Kind of way. No, there's no evidence that it was at the school. We have no evidence that it was at the school.
They told their parents that it was. The parents believed that it was.
The parents also would not let us talk to the other members of the family. And I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you, for our investigation to be completed, we want to talk to everybody. We were denied access to other people.
No, the Dupuis never refused to allow the questioning of other members of the family. There was a discussion with the sheriff's office about the possibility of performing polygraphs on every member of the family, aunts and uncles and grandfathers and the teenage sons. Our concern was that those teenage boys' first encounter with the police would be hooking up wires to them, asking them if they had sex with their sister. That was inappropriate. As the officer recently testified in a deposition, there was no need for that because the child had only named the people at the daycare center as abusing her.
The case against the Metairie Playcare Center will have its day in court. Now, if we are to believe confessed killer and professed Satanist Charlie Gervais, small children are indeed targets at some daycare centers.
Daycare centers.
Satanists run most of the daycare centers. Not most, but a lot of the bigger ones.
For what reason?
To teach children about Satanism. Not just really the basics, like symbols and things like that, because it'll embed in the child, and the child will grow up thinking about Satanism.
But they actually have ceremonies with these small children.
Sometimes.
And what do they do at these ceremonies with the small children?
Sometimes sex.
You know that Satanists run them?
Some. Few. Yeah.
Are the children being inducted for human sacrifice later or to become members later on?
To become members, human sacrifices. For
Both?
All, yeah.
Both.
You could become a human sacrifice.
Explain that.
Somebody could just drive by, pick you up, throw you in the back of a van, bring you somewhere and kill you. That would be a human sacrifice, wouldn't it?
It happens like that?
Yeah.
People just disappear off the street. But wouldn't you worry about whether or not there would be a police investigation? I mean, a search for me?
No.
Least you think that Charlie Gervais is kidding about murder. Police say that he did in fact abduct his victim, a Metairie man, and brutally kill him with a hammer. He concealed the body in the back of an abandoned sofa before being apprehended. Charlie confided that the killing was his initiation into a New Orleans satanic coven. When the journal continues, you will hear firsthand from a young boy whose father introduced him to a satanic way of life, and from a detective who quit the force when superiors refused to believe her reports. Coming up after this.
There is one British automobile which has no need to sing its own praises.
So comfortable, so luxurious, so obviously meant for serious driving.
With the possible exception of the Concorde, no machine so nicely put together has ever before come out of England.
Starting, surprisingly, at around $22,000. It is the Sterling, the inevitable British road car.
She won't go to school. She fights with everyone. She says she hates us.
He gets so angry. I'm afraid he's gonna hurt someone.
I don't understand. He's just a kid. He says he wants to die.
What's wrong with me? I feel like I'm losing my mind. This can't go on.
Talking to yourself about emotional problems isn't enough. We can help. Call North Shore Psychiatric Hospital at 504-646-5500.
If everything we are hearing is true, then the saddest part of this entire satanic business is what it does to children who become caught up in it.
Which I never understood that.
Take the case of Sandra Killam and her 6-year-old son. She says that her former husband, David Killam, was a high priest of a satanic cult in Grenada, Mississippi, where David was an assistant principal at the local high school. Little by little, she says that she learned what her former husband was up to.
This was at supper time when I was clearing the table. I didn't pay any attention. He was doodling. And this is what my ex-husband drew, and when I saw it, I screamed. It was so horrible.
Sandra Killam said that soon after her young son began drawing horrible things as well, that is when she really began to learn what was going on.
This is the baby, and this is a splatter the blood he would make on the wall. Like.
The woman needed to go to the hospital, but they wouldn't take her, and the baby was born there, wherever there was. And that after the baby came out, they knew it was a real baby because it went wah, wah. Then they slung the baby.
I can tell him this.
Skull crushed and blood.
Let me tell him. I can probably tell him.
You can tell him.
Well, the lady was having a baby when they stabbed it. Then they started throwing the baby against the wall, and the mama was crying about it.
Your father was there?
He was doing all the mean stuff.
What did you think when you saw your own father there? Did you think it was all right?
No. I didn't think killing a baby was all right at all.
On another occasion, the young boy remembers being placed in a small coffin by his father.
Can you tell him about being put under the ground and being buried in a cemetery?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's funny, I lived through that.
What happened?
He really didn't put me under the ground. He really, put the bottom part of the coffin under the round part and left the top so he could open it up. He didn't want to kill me because he wanted me to stay alive so he could torture me more.
But your father put you in a coffin?
Uh-huh, and locked it. But he left holes so I could breathe. I don't know where he got these coffins and things from. Bought them from some place. I don't know where he really got them.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. He was just an evil person.
Sandra Killam says she has since been told by experts on Satanism that the significance of the coffin and the mock burial was to symbolically kill the mortal child's soul and give him rebirth as Satan's son. Sandra Killam says she believes that her husband began using their son in satanic worship soon after he was born, and that went undetected for 6.5 years. How many times did you witness something like this with your father?
Almost every day that my mom would let me go out with him, because not every day I would tell her about what was happening.
Why didn't you tell your mom?
Because David would sometimes tell me he would kill me if I told anybody about it. Anyway, David told me to go tell him where the gun was and for me to go get the gun and shoot my mom. He just told me to do it in her sleep. And I wouldn't listen.
Sandra Killam says her husband quit his job as assistant principal and left town when she went to authorities. She says she brought the case before a grand jury in Grenada, but nothing came of it. Attempts to find David Killam to get his side of the story were unsuccessful.
Yes, it happens. And
Father Joe Brennan, a Catholic priest from the Diocese of Lafayette, Louisiana, has been especially trained to deal with satanically abused children. And he says he has seen literally hundreds of cases like the young boy.
There's only one word for it, and it's diabolical. They have created these children to be human time bombs. They have created these children to carry a presence of an evil until hopefully sometime in adulthood this can be dealt with.
The Journal spoke with social and medical scientists about all of the things that you have seen tonight. They are Dr. Jim Houck, an anthropologist studying the occult under a Fulbright scholarship, Dr. Pat Galloway, a popular sociologist who counsels hundreds of people each week on his talk show, and Dr. Amit Kastapol, a New Orleans psychiatrist who has treated adolescents involved in Satanism. When we asked the scientists why they thought people were turning to satanic worship, the answers went like this.
And at particular times in our life, we're very vulnerable. If we're going through a lot of stress, if we're going through a situation that we can't understand and somebody gives us an explanation and they're charismatic enough to put this across, I really think that they could get involved in some form of worship that's not good for them.
These people really don't seem to, from what I know and from reading literature, they don't really seem to have a concept of evil per se, in other words, of the way that we think about evil. They've somehow, they haven't really bracketed it out. They don't ignore it. What they've done is incorporate that into the good.
It's a magical pagan idea, so by itself, that's nothing new. It has happened across cultures and across civilizations. So there is that aspect of people that will always be drawn to these kind of things. The illusion is that if you sign the pact with the devil will give you the power to do whatever you want, but then you are the slave to devil. So do you really have the power or you don't? Meaning that's the fallacy of it all.
The question in everyone's mind seems to be, how widespread is this Satan business? Law enforcement, or at least some elements of law enforcement, are trying to find out, as evidenced by the recent seminar in Lafayette. But take the case of former Jefferson Parish Detective Mary Forsythe. Detective Forsythe says she discovered that 2 teachers in the Jefferson Parish school system were in fact Satanist and actively recruiting students. And when she pushed the investigation,
I was moved from the day shift when I could have gotten my information from the different schools on addresses of children and how to reach them. And I was moved to the evening shift, and I couldn't do any more work on the case.
You felt that they were throttling you?
Yes.
Mary Forsythe says her investigation led her to conclude that Satanism among high school students was spreading faster than anyone could ever imagine.
I would say, when I'm saying 100, I'm meaning in one school, coming from one high school.
When Detective Forsythe tried to convince ranking authorities that public school teachers were themselves recruiting students into Satanism, she says she was stonewalled.
I requested that the superintendent of the Jefferson Parish school system be notified about these 2 people in our public school system.
What was the response of the people above you?
I have never heard anything about the Jefferson Parish superintendent ever being notified.
You're saying then that Harry Lee's department is covering up all of this?
I don't know if you'd call it a cover-up, a lack of interest, or I felt that I was completely discredited in working this case, that I had people ridiculing me, have past remarks that she's crazy. They ran behind me with the Holy Rosary, and actually it was to the point that I really felt like putting my head down when I walked in, but I knew what I had was real.
Mary Forsythe, with a 10.5-year unblemished record, finally quit the department in frustration. Sheriff Harry Lee says he is unaware of Detective Forsythe's problems with her ranking officers. But Mary Forsythe's ridicule is not uncommon. It seems that whoever attempts to expose Satanism meets with the same problem. Sandra Kellum, whose 6.5-year-old son was so horribly abused, was ridiculed. Ed and June Baum, who believe that Satanists are involved in the death of their daughter Donna, as well as Betty Hebert and Rose Allen, whose cattle were killed, all feel that they were ridiculed when they told what they knew. Even Charlie Gervais, the self-professed Satanist who killed a man in order to join a coven, was laughed at.
Yep.
Back with the final word after this message.
Make amazing Cajun flavor. Just right, them wild Cajun spices got an extra crunchy bite. Don't say I didn't warn you about the crunch tater munch. It's a real taste explosion in the flavor and the crunch. Lay's brand crunch taters, extra crunchy potato chips. There's a real taste
was taught to save for a rainy day. So even on rainy days, I shop at Del Shamps.
There's only one real way to save on food day after day. Del Shamps everyday minimum pricing. Del Shamps, friendly people, bright, clean stores, and absolutely lower pricing. 24 hours, every day.
I used to be pound foolish, but now I'm penny wise at Del Shamps.
Day in, day out, nobody beats Del Shamps prices.
Seriously? I'd always worn glasses, and I knew my prescription had changed. But I put off getting a new pair because it's such a hassle, waiting 2-3 weeks. Then I tried Lens Crafters.
Lens Crafters crafts your quality glasses in about an hour by putting the whole lab right in the store, so you can see better, faster, in about an hour.
Did it on my lunch hour. 1 hour. Now, that's my kind of people.
Lens Crafters, custom-crafted eyeglasses in about an hour. The Esplanade in Kenner and the Plaza at Lake Forest open Sundays.
This portion of Bill Elder's Journal has been brought to you in part by Crunch Taters, another fine product of Frito-Lay, and by the new Del Champ Superstores.
Tonight's Journal brings to a close this program for the rest of the year. 4th Down on 4, which brings you the football scores on Sunday night, has an original claim on this time slot. However, the Journal will return at the first of the year with stories that you won't find anywhere else. Now, we who work with the labor of love on this program are proud of the product that Journal has produced during the past 8 months. In fact, we leave you now with scenes from most of those stories and the names of the people who worked on them. Until January, good night.
They were mixing two chemicals, which is 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. And if they did mix these two chemicals, and that would be the property of Agent Orange, which is, we learned later, was being used in Vietnam.
He's a very different individual. He has vast knowledge. He is a master.
Hot donuts just made. This whole neighborhood has the best of everything.
And they pull out their clubs and they begin hitting.
He never should have stopped the fella.
That's my baseball. I have to be careful when I say the word Yankee.
You have to say it with reverence, sister.
Big deal.
They have a tremendous desire to excel.
American citizen. Very few cities have personalities, and New Orleans has a real personality.
I know we got quite a few airborne. Yay! We got some Rangers here.
They put up their sign, they said, "We're here, what are you going to do about it?"
We're clearly in the business of recycling hazardous waste into a safe aggregate.
What we feel are accidents waiting to happen.
We told this boy he couldn't box.
I wouldn't want to wake up someday and think, oh, I should have done such and such for my kids. No mother wants that. If I didn't work on Citrus Hill, I would have thought, my kids get enough calcium. I serve them plenty of milk and cheese. But just because you serve it doesn't mean they finish it. What we did was add a special calcium system to 100% pure orange juice. Fresh, delicious juice, so you know your kids will drink it. Valerie loves it. To her, it's just juice. To me, it's calcium she needs. I feel good that I help make Plus Calcium. I feel even better serving it.
Clara.
Oh, great shot. 12 slopes from back to front, so he'll be coming downhill for his birdie try.
Ian Woosnam, who actually picked up 4 shots on the front side, then bogeyed 8 and bogeyed 10, and he is now at 3 over.